Welcome, Seth. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
Good, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah, me too. So I'm so excited. But let's start first. So tell my
Okay.
audience maybe your pronouns, and then where in the world are you located, and maybe one little tiny bit of information about you that has nothing to do with what we're going to talk afterwards.
Okay. My pronouns are he, him, his, but I'm cool with being called a girl every once in a while or she. I hail to you from rainy Hollywood, California. And uh, um, let's see. I was once hurt. I broke my leg actually in one of those like soccer bubbles. You know, when you're
Hmm.
running around and like the bubbles around you, I'm
Hmm.
probably one of the only people to get hurt by doing that. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Wondering what information that was for you. No.
No idea. I don't know where that came from. I'm thinking about it. That was a big thing too, because I couldn't walk for 4 months after. So
Yeah.
I think it was a huge healing that I had to go through and a huge process. But anyway, I don't
Yeah.
know where that came from.
Well,
Sorry.
the universe sure told you to sit still a bit, Seth.
It did. It did. I think it did. It did.
Yeah, not just I think. So, listen, let's dive in. So,
Okay.
you say you're a psychic. So, first, can you maybe give a short explanation what that means for those of my listeners who have no clue or are like, what?
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll do psychic and medium at the same time, right? So
Mhm.
as a psychic I can feel I receive information in a variety of different ways.
Mhm.
There's all sorts of I'm sure most people have heard of clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, that sort of stuff. It's how we receive information.
Mhm.
And I believe it's how we receive information about the not so distant past, the present, and the not so distant future. So
Mhm.
that's what I believe to be a psychic, someone who can tap into that and receive it and provide that to someone else. A medium, however, is someone who can do that, plus can also connect with, if you believe in deceased loved ones, that their souls
Mhm.
never die,
Mhm.
or their essence never dies. I believe that we are connecting with human souls, and I've connected with a lot of animal souls as well.
Mhm.
So it's the ability to kind of tap into and receive information from an even more kind of, I don't know, ethereal space.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I think so. And
Okay.
thanks for clarifying the difference. Because I do sometimes know things and I can never explain it, but I wouldn't call myself a psychic. And and a lot of like you hear a lot about mediums and stuff. So are you similar? Like, for example, I watched on Netflix the show Life After Death with Tyler Henry. Is that similar? And I know this is a TV show, so I'm not expecting you to do the TV show thing, but is this kind of like what my listeners or the people who watch on YouTube could identify you with? That's
Yes.
similar. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. There's a new show coming out on, I think it's ABC or CBS, Not Dead Yet. It's another show about mediums.
Hmm.
Um, there's a show Ghosts
Hmm.
on ABC, and that talks about mediumship in a interesting
Hmm.
way. And then there's like John Edwards, James Van Prague, Long Island
Hmm.
Medium. There's a whole bunch of people. But yes, that is Tyler
Okay.
Henry is yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I find that endlessly fascinating already since I'm a little girl. So, but I don't want to just talk about that.
Sure.
So maybe one question really slipping in. How can we know if we meet somebody like me meeting you? How can we know you're a real psychic or a real medium? Or like, are there, I would assume there are some people that just say they are, maybe not. Maybe that's just my kind of like negative mind or my critical mind asking that. Just
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is I believe that everyone can be psychic and everyone can be intuitive. So I feel like when you just know things, that's what we call claircognizance, and that is a form of psychicism or and this type of work. So I think I think having a reading with someone, I think, is really the only way to see if they're real or not. You know,
Mhm.
I live in Hollywood, right? So there's tons of like medium signs and psychic
Mhm.
signs and stuff. So and once in a while I do love to just kind of stop in and see like how they do, but it's all about receiving information. So and I
Mhm.
never put any other medium down or psychic down. So,
Mm.
until meeting them, I wouldn't know. But it's about the resonation with it and the connection with the
Mhm.
information that they're receiving and that they're giving to you. That's
Yeah.
how you know if they're real.
Okay. Yeah. No, it was not about putting anybody down. I did have once a reading, and this person told me things that I could not relate to at all. But
Got it.
on the other hand, it was about my childhood, and it could easily be that I don't remember this or suppress this or whatever.
Mm.
And since then, I'm kind of like trying to figure out, maybe she didn't know what she was talking about, or it's me. So was just a quick question that popped in my head. So mediumship, you're talking with, or talking in brackets,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yes.
With the deaf. You also, I heard you say, or I read that you love talking about deaf. So what,
Absolutely.
because
I
you're connected, because you're a medium, or
I think
what?
I've always been fascinated with death.
Yeah.
By the time I was 8, pretty much everyone on my mother's side had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was exposed to a lot of death early on. And then in my teens and 20s, so many people in my life passed away, and I was just fascinated.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider myself to be a researcher on death, and I just study death. And,
Mm-hmm.
and that I have certain expertises within that, but I just love, it's one of the topics I can talk about all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
anything you want to talk about death, I'm
Yeah.
happy to do it.
So does it help to be a medium to process the death of a loved one easier? Like for you, because you kind of lost many people. I'm in the same boat. I have almost no family left. Everybody moved
Mm,
on without
yeah,
me. so so I'm
for now.
wondering, does it
Yeah.
help you to be a medium to process the worldly, earthly experience of them passing on?
I think it's different when you're a medium because some deaths have been in my life have been easier, but some haven't been.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the idea. I think let's just say intimate and close deaths, I think are just as hard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Even though in the end you can talk to them,
Yeah, that's kind
you
of what
have
I'm
to
thinking.
process through all the other stuff to be able to like handle talking to them. For example, my mother-in-law passed like a little bit, a year and a half ago, not even. And so my husband still can't talk to her, and it's a difficult, challenging death for him. And
Mhm.
it's difficult for me, but I still allow her to come through. But again, she wasn't my mother, and when that
Yeah.
happens to me, like you know, I so sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not.
Yeah. I have a friend who does animal communication, and she always says like she can't talk with the cat who passed, that was her cat. She
Mm.
somehow doesn't, but she was able to talk with several of my animals. So
Oh, great.
that must be kind of like either universe protection or just your own blockage, that when they're close.
Well, um, for me personally, like I can speak to my own deceased loved ones. However,
Hmm.
sometimes I think, is there some type of blockage that I can't get more information from them?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I can connect with anyone else's, right? So, but I think the volume it's almost like turned down a little bit for my own
Hmm.
family, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's turned way up for everyone else. I have not I've only tried once or twice to connect with my own animals.
Hmm. Hmm.
Animal communication for me is the newest kind of gift that I've
Hmm.
been given or graced with. Um, so I'll have to do more work on that. But I love connecting other people with their animals. It's so much
Hmm.
fun. It's so much more fun than humans.
Hmm. So the reason why I want to talk with you about death, and since you're loving it so much too, is like not just have I lost so many people, but when I help people with clutter, there is oftentimes a lot of grief involved because they did lose a loved one and then they can't let anything go. They fill up their house with all the possessions of that person and can't. And this is kind of like why I wanted to talk with you about this and ask whether it's easier. So it's not necessarily easier for you. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Do you maybe have still anything you could say to someone who lost a loved one and is very devastated and now clings to all the possessions? Like, I know I put you on the spot, but maybe something comes up that you could say. I know what I always say, and I have a lot of experience with people dying, but that's just me. Maybe it helps.
Okay. I'm gonna feel into this one as I answer it. So it's kind of coming from me and whoever else that I talk to. Spirit world, I guess. I do think it's important to remember who they were, and it's important to remember that they would want the best for you and that they would want you to be happy, and whatever you need to do that within reason. You know, do you need all of their things? No. But the most sentimental, yes, of course. I mean, though, that's important for so many reasons. I think I believe, like you, that there's a lot more going on if they're holding on for dear life to like everything or 75% of everything. I believe there's more going on, and I would encourage people to, you know, seek therapy or seek coaching or talk and share about who they were, who the deceased loved ones were, because I believe that there's more going on. And it might be their guilt, it might be their shame, it might be their disappointment, and go see a medium too. Like, but there are, I truly believe in the healing journey and the healing process, and how powerful it can be, especially with death, and grieving from someone's passing. And I think really the only way I like to say that I help people heal productively and effectively.
Yeah.
And so if you do and follow kind of those steps and what works for you, I think that the clinging will be less, the need and obsessiveness will be less for material items. I mean, as I talk to you now, like, that's my grandmother who passed last year. You know, like, I have things that are, and there's something else in this room too, but like that my friends gave me, you know, or that I've took from one of my friends as they pass, because I like to have one memento from each person. And I think it's all about knowing that you're going through a journey and going through that journey.
Yeah. And I think like so to me it's like a lot of people are just so worried that they are disrespectful to the person who left if they get rid of the things. And I always say, like, how respectful is it to fill up your house with boxes full of stuff that they may or may not have really like put much thought into it, you know, like how many things you have in your own house that you don't really put that much thought into it. So I love that you have that on the wall. I also have a lot of things out. So for example, my favorite grandmother, I have her cooking pot. I cook a lot with it. I pull it out, say, hi, Nonna, let's cook together, you know? So I often feel like we honor and respect them way more if we're actually intentionally keep something. But that is my approach. So that's why I wanted to ask you. So you touched already a little bit on it. So you're married and your husband is also a psychic medium, I understand. Yes. So that must be a little bit crazy.
It's always crazy. It's always crazy. Every day is a complete adventure. We have this silly little joke, you know, that he doesn't like small tiny little spiders. He used to have tarantulas as pets, right? But he's scared of the tiny ones. And so I kill or take them outside, right? Depending on if they're going to be venomous or not. So sometimes I can't tell his spook sounds, whether it's he's running into someone, a deceased loved one in our house, or if it's if it's a bug. It's like the same spook sound, like you know. So, but every day is an adventure, and there's a lot of feelings going around, a lot of emotions going around, and he also will feel when I'm reading. Like the other day, I was doing a reading for someone in the evening, and he's like, "Hey, there's someone else here." I was like, "Yep, that's for me. That's for later on." Um, it's it's a lot. It's a lot sometimes. It's a lot.
I could just imagine. And so now what interests me is too is like just not like the everyday. So between the two of you, do you also connect on a different level then, since you both are psychics and mediums? Like or you're keeping it down on earth?
You mean like between him and I?
Yeah, for
Oh,
example,
got it.
if you're not in the same house or in the same room, you're maybe somewhere on the road, and then oh hey, let me check in with my husband or something. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It sometimes it feels like as if we're married for like 40 years because I will go to text him. He'll be like, "Oh my God, I was just gonna text you," or
Uh,
and that happens every day, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So we do connect on several different levels like that. Sometimes it makes communication even more challenging because I think I'm feeling something from him, and then I need to confirm that he's thinking that before I move on to the next part because I'm already assuming that he's thinking that. Um, so that's, but what also is interesting is like we do married mediums reading. That's like the reading session, and we get a lot of the same information, and like we work really well together from a mediumistic perspective.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
that's cool.
It sounds awesome. It literally sounds, I don't know, like I always, Tyler Henry comes to my mind always. And I'm just thinking like if his partner would also be psychic, how that would be. And I think he's kind of glad his partner isn't. That's the way I understood.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I've never met another couple that both are
yeah,
active, practicing working mediums.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so now I want to go a little bit to your mission,
Okay.
or your vision. So you want to help 1 billion people, and I'm reading it here, so do
Hmm.
not get it wrong.
Hmm.
1 billion, not million, billion people to heal and smile from the inside. And you even wrote a book about how to smile from the inside. So tell me a little bit more. How did this mission come about, and what it is all about, and what you mean
Sure.
with smile from the inside?
Okay. Um, I remember it was about 10 years ago when I started writing my first book. Um, my boyfriend at the time seroconverted to HIV positive and told me over the phone because I was in Mexico, we're going back and forth for work. He said, I tested and I tested positive, and I was like, oh wow, okay, this is gonna change our lives. And oh wow, I need to get back to him because he was freaking out. And it was like to get back to LA from where I was like usually a 24-hour trip, and I made it basically in like 12 hours. I mean, there were like 3 flights involved and like hours of driving in a car. So on the way back to him, I decided that what we're about to go through is going to be pretty intense. So what if I kind of document like the different feelings I have, not necessarily every day, but like every couple of days, just check in with myself, see how I'm doing and see the process that I'm going through. I had noticed a pattern from when I was 22, 23 years old. So this was now 10 years later that I would heal and go through this process in a different way. Like I knew that it would take me about 2 weeks to start crying if anyone passed in my life, or
Hmm,
if something that was terrible. It would take me about 2 weeks for it to kind of sink in.
hmm.
So I knew that I went through this process. And so I said, why don't if I can help one other person by identifying the process that I go through, maybe this can be a thing. Maybe I can help people heal. Um, and so my vision began at that time to be, you know, helping people smile from the inside and smile from the inside. So I use the acronym of SMILE, S-M-I-L-E, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. That's the actual method itself. But smiling from the inside is not about being happy and being like smiling all the time. It's about having done the work. It's about having been essentially what I call to the depths of despair and seen like the gateways of heaven. So like you have ups and downs and everything, and you've done the work to get to a place where you know how you heal. You are so aware of your process that you kind of go through it, and it gives hope to people that like, okay, I'm going through all these stages. It's basically an update from Dr. Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief and that dying. I believe it's a 21st century version of that. So smiling from the inside is more of a lifestyle choice than I would say than actual process. But so the book I wrote, Smile from the Inside, I think it's a guide to healing from anything in this modern, crazy modern world. But essentially it's 5 steps. S is for shock. M is for acceptance. I is for in overwhelmed. L is for learning, and E is for embrace. So shock is shock. It's like oh my God, what's going on? Acceptance is a word I made up. It's part denial and part acceptance. When someone passes, we have a lot to do. We have a lot of logistics to get done, and somehow the mind, body, and soul work together to allow you just enough focus to get those things done. And allows like the information to kind of trickle in, right? So that's why some days you feel totally fine and you're like, okay, I can do this. We're going to get through the funeral. We're going to get through the blah, blah, the memorial service. And then, the day that everyone leaves your house and everyone leaves, that's when you are like, oh my God, like, I don't even want to leave this house for another month or two, So that's my acceptance. And then the in overwhelmed. These are the poignant and significant emotions and feelings that I believe people are scared of. And I believe the anger and the depression and the everything in between, we need to experience all that. Just yesterday, I was telling a client of mine, her sister had committed suicide, and the person on the other side was holding on to all the guilt and saying it was my fault and the burden was on her. And I was like, no, you need to get angry. Like through the mediumship session, even the person who I was connecting with was like, you need to be mad at me. Like, I did this. You didn't do this. You had nothing. You could have done nothing. So we need to go through those emotions, and that's the in overwhelmed to get to the other side, which is learning. And learning for me is exactly what it says. It's about gaining powerful, profound insight into that which happened. So for a breakup, right? It's like, what did I do to contribute? What did they do to contribute? And working through what you're going to do next time, what you're not going to do next time, what you can do better next time, all those things. And finally, E is for embrace, because, acceptance just isn't enough anymore. We live in the 21st century, and we need to enthusiastically kind of embrace whatever's happened to us. That works with everything, even death. But death, it's more of like, I was blessed to have this person in my life. I was honored for all the lessons that I was taught by this person, or I'm just so happy that they're no longer in pain. I mean, like and also there are traumatic deaths and traumatic events that happen in people's lives. And I just want to say, it still works in that process. It's just the embrace is different. Like if your daughter is killed in a terrible shooting, like a school shooting, how do you embrace that ever, really? But I believe the way to embrace that is by moving it forward and paying it forward, working with a nonprofit or working with the government. I mean, doing something to better the lives of everyone around you and paying it forward. I think that's so powerful and empowering. And that's how we embrace that type of horrible, terrible, tragic passing death event. So I think I answered all your questions.
Yeah. And I think it's such an important work you're doing, because we're so not equipped. We don't learn it anywhere. Most people don't know how to deal with it. Most people can't even talk about it. Like, it's also interesting how you said, like in the beginning, when something happens, we're just strong enough to get through it, and then later that the other phase, the M phase, I think the mock acceptance, is the phase where where you crash. And I always said, like, when my dad died, for example, like everybody was so concerned and helpful and everything. And then the service, the funeral was over, and then you didn't hear anything anymore from anybody. And that's actually when you would need somebody reaching out and saying, hey,
Yes.
are you okay? Because
Yes.
but everybody reaches out before, and oh my god, and but you're still busy, you don't even know yet what happened, you just kind of like it, you know it up here in intellectually, but you don't know it. Like I
Right.
kind of make that this thing. And
Yeah.
so many people just don't know how to deal with it. And also I think as a society we always push death away when actually it's how life works. No, it's like if nobody would die, I don't think that's a pretty thought. Like, and I'm not just talking about humans, I'm talking
Yeah.
about everything. If in nature fall and winter wouldn't happen, nothing would die, if no animal would ever die, if no human ever would die, like it's not a pretty picture, and it's just also not how it works.
Right. And death is so taboo in so many different
Yeah.
cultures, not all cultures, but most cultures. And death is the only thing that's guaranteed. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even think taxes are guaranteed for the rest of our existence. Like
Yeah.
death is, oh, you will die.
Yeah.
Um, and I I totally agree with what you're saying. There's
Yeah.
so many, yeah, there's a lot of
I
taboo.
do think it actually helps to how shall I say this? To try to integrate that into your life before you're losing somebody, because it would help a lot. Would you agree with that? You
Absolutely.
like
And that's,
nodding. Okay, so
yeah, no, I know. And that's why I want people to read this book, not necessarily after they've gone through the worst loss of their life. I want them to read it when they're in a different space, when they're open-minded
yeah.
to understand that there is a process that we all go through for any type of loss, including death. And that's why I want to talk about death all the time, because it's so important. Like sometimes I even get scared of death, and I'm a
Mm-hmm.
medium and I hear from the other side that no, you close your eyes, you open it, you have a welcoming committee, and you're in
Mm-hmm.
a much better place than where we are now,
Yeah.
but I still get scared of it too, but that's why I want to talk about it more and more and more.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether we're more scared of the dying part rather than the being dead part, or what,
Yeah.
is like, at least that's kind of for me. I'm not so at least right now when I'm saying this, not so scared to be dead, but I'm kind of like a little anxious about the dying part. So
Huh.
because there are so many versions. Now, like you just said, we could die dramatically, we could suffer a lot. You don't know, and I think that is what stops most people to even think a step further or whatever. So yeah. So, and then you have another method, which you call the grace method. And so that would be then something, if somebody, so that's how I understand it. If somebody experienced something in the past, then you can help them with that method too. So if somebody now lost somebody in the past and is stuck in this grief, in whatever stage, probably still in the shock space or
Mhm.
wherever they're staying stuck, is that then where you would start implementing that grace method?
Yeah, some people, I think of the S.M.I.L.E method as more of kind of the past couple years, like, and
Mm-hmm.
and to current day, right? Like it's for modern traumatic events and
Mm-hmm.
obstacles and loss. Whereas I think the grace method is about past things that happened 20, 30, 15, 10 years ago, things that people just cannot get past,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
could be part of your decluttering process as well, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so the grace method, again, it's an acronym. So G is for going deep, R is for responsibility, A is for activate your emotions, and
No,
C.
see.
C is for compassion and E is for evolve, right? To
Mm-hmm.
it. So I believe that if you do go through these 5 stages, it will help tremendously. And so that's what the book is about. So going deep is about first telling the story from your side, right? Like exaggerate, tell it to everyone who will listen, exaggerate. But the second part of that is to tell it from the other person or the other entity involved, right? Whether it's a company, whether it's an ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, or someone who's died. Because I believe that there are three versions to every truth, right? Your version, the other person's version, and then the truth
The
of what
truth,
happened,
yeah. I
right?
just want to say what really happened,
What
or
really
just
happened.
the neutral thing, like,
Right, right.
yeah.
So the idea with the going deep is to get to a place where when you get to the neutral story and you learn so much from telling the other person's side of the story, like as I was writing the book, I even got to more levels of like compassion and grace for this ex person that I had broken up with me. So you get to a point where you can take accountability and responsibility for your side, then that's where the R comes in. So that's you telling the story from the most neutral point and perception you possibly can. Once you get through that, then it's going to create emotions. And again, they're important to get through. These are poignant and significant emotions. But you have to feel it. You have to feel the loss of that relationship. You have to feel, and it's 20 years or 15, 20, 30 years. So the idea with going through those emotions is to get to the compassion part. So first we feel sorry for them, right? And then the feeling sorry feels, oh, like I wish they were better, or I wish they did this. And then kind of compassion starts to, and forgiveness starts to happen. And I think the hardest person to forgive most of the time is ourselves, depending on what the situation is, right? And then once you get to the compassion, the forgiveness, then it's about evolving, right? The evolution of that process is no longer the worst journey of your life. No, it was a crazy adventure, and it had ups and downs and lefts and rights, but like that's what makes me who I am today, and that's helped to make me who I am today. So again, it's with the same idea as embracing, but it's about really working on getting to the next best iteration of you and understanding how it has affected you and moving forward, and it's getting to a point where you might be triggered, but you can recognize the trigger fast, go through like, oh wow, okay, yeah, we went through that. Oh right, I've done the work on this. And then kind of the next breath be like, okay, I'm all right, let's keep going.
I love it. So you also say that you can heal anybody from anything and everything, or whatever, exactly how you say it. So how does your psychic abilities, your mediumship, and these processes that you, or methods that you created, how do they play together? Does one stand without the other, or does it need both? Or what is your vision on that, or your
So when clients come to me, they're drawn to me for many reasons, but I generally work with LGBTQ through that community, although I do have other clients as well, in the A plus version, right? Um, they come to me because they want to make better choices. They're at a place in their life where they are successful and that they're moving forward, but there's something not right. There's something holding them back, and there's something keeping them from moving forward. And it's usually a loss of some type, or grief, or lots of losses, right? And obstacles. So I also am a healer, like an intuitive physical healer, so I can help people. So as I'm talking to my clients, I'm always sending them healing in some way, shape, or form, like energetically. And then no matter what we talk about that day, from that week or that 2 weeks, we can clearly kind of talk about either the grace method or the S.M.I.L.E method, or other like levels of awareness. I do a lot of work about awareness as well, to move them forward or move them through whatever they need to go through. And the psychic abilities come in, and I can see and tell them what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear, but what they need to hear and what they need to see in order to make better decisions, and helping them also to listen to their own intuition. So when people work with me, they start understanding, I start asking them, well, what do you feel on that? You know, like, how are you feeling on that? And it helps them usually move forward. My clients love me, so they usually stay for quite a while.
Yeah, just wanted to say, so it sounds more like there's not somebody comes to you and just books one session for an hour and then
Right, and right, they're
gone.
healed. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that has happened from a mediumship perspective or intuitive coaching perspective, but and so they're wonderful conversations, but it's not me really doing the healing in those sessions. It's more like
Mm-hmm.
the person on the other side, that they're helping the person to feel less guilty or feel less ashamed or less disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so um, but I do help people with healing as well, like energetic healing, just healing,
Yeah.
no talking really.
Yeah. Okay. And so, just for shit and giggles, what is the most awesome experience, or like, is there anything crazy? Like, I just kind of remember back again to the Tyler Henry show where sometimes
Yeah,
he was even blown away what happened. So, do you have some story where you say, guess what happened? And of course, with keeping the privacy of everybody
sure.
involved.
I think one of the coolest experiences, there are two. So one of the coolest experiences with an animal, the other one we with a human. My husband is South African. We were in South Africa. We were at a place called the Cheetah Experience, and they are a rehabilitation center for cats, like big cats. They call them big cats. Um, and as we were walking around, I noticed that there was a black leopard there. Also, what would be considered a black panther? That is the same thing, because there's
Yeah. Is
no
that
such.
famous one? That
Yes, but
okay.
that's
Okay.
but there's no such thing as a black panther. It's only a black
Yeah.
leopard.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, so the owner came around on our tour, and she asked if anyone had any questions, and she was asking where everyone was from, and I was the only person that was from like another country, and
Hmm.
she kind of honed in on us, and I just said, I was like, you know that your leopard is suffering right in the back hind leg and or back right hind leg, and she's like, how could you possibly know that?
Hmm.
And I said, oh, I just felt it. And she's like, wait, what? Are you mediums?
Hmm.
And so as soon as she found that out, she like literally was like, you go on with the tour. I'm taking, and we were with a couple people. So she's like, I'm taking these 3 people with me. So she's like, I want you to talk to Mary. And I was like, okay. She's like, I want you to talk to her and then come tell me what you see afterwards. So we got to go into the enclosure with
Hmm.
Mary the cheetah and like sit down with her and pet her. There was a handler there, of course,
Hmm. Hmm.
but we got to like be up close and personal with a cheetah, which was it was scary
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and incredible. And so afterwards, we went to the to sit down, and I just started telling her everything that I had received from Mary. And one of the things she said was, like, I knew she had cancer of some sort, and it had come back for the second or third time, and to which she agreed and confirmed. But the most beautiful thing that the cheetah Mary said was, I have far less days ahead of me than I do behind me.
Hmm.
Meaning, like I'm on my deathbed and I know this and understand this, and that's okay. And when I said that, like everyone started crying. I mean, both of us started crying. It was just a beautiful experience. And then I noticed that there was another cheetah that kind of came through, and I'd never spoken to a wild animal before,
Hmm.
on the other side. And so it turns out that a year prior to this event, she had a cheetah, her very first cheetah like passed away. So I got all this information from her very first cheetah, and it was just it was, we were crying. It was incredible in the sense that it was a cheetah. Like, it wasn't like a cat, it wasn't a
Hmm. Hmm.
dog, it wasn't a
Yeah.
snake. It was like a cheetah,
Yeah.
and all the beautiful things that they were saying for this woman, the owner.
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful experience.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
one of those like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like, and we would have had that experience had I not been a medium, right? Like, I never would have met the baby
Yes. And wouldn't you
cheetahs.
have opened your mouth and said that
Right,
she
right.
has something in her back
Right.
left or
And I
back
could,
right or whatever it was,
right,
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
I think I think the other thing I want to say is about the human story is that it happened yesterday, actually. I'm doing a reading, and this woman had committed suicide, and I didn't know how, and it doesn't really matter to me how, because that doesn't matter. What matters is everything else.
Hmm.
And this deceased person was like making fun of how she committed suicide, to the point where she made it a joke. And when I
Hmm.
said the joke, and I said, this is a joke, and I'm going to say it to you, but I'm sorry, but this is like
Hmm.
her sense of humor.
Hmm.
The person like started bawling and sobbing, but said, yeah, that's exactly what she would say.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and then after that, I said a couple more things, and it's the power of like and then her father came through, and her father, all he wanted her to know was that he's proud of her, because he told me he never said I'm proud of her ever in life.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said that one sentence, she was like blown away, started sobbing again. And she's like, that's the one thing I wanted to know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how is that possible? So that's why I know that there's something
Yeah.
bigger and better
Mm-hmm.
and more beautiful happening on the other side,
Yeah.
or, you know?
There's definitely more. Um,
Yeah.
so we're almost wrapping up, but I have
Okay.
one last question that I
Oh,
really
sure.
have to
Sure,
ask
sure,
you.
sure.
So in our pre-chat, we figured out that you just were recently in Iceland, and I'm born in
Yes.
Iceland and haven't
Right.
been
It's
back
so cool.
since. So I'm Swiss and I'm not Icelandic, but I'm born there. And then when I was 8 months old, we went back to Switzerland, and I haven't been back. But I know Iceland is a very special place. They have hidden or secret people, fairies, elves, trolls. They call them Huldu folk or something.
Yeah.
I can't speak Icelandic, so I don't know. So what I'm dying to know, other than I'm really jealous that you were there, I mean, but I want to know is, did you come across any of these guys, gals?
So interesting. So I felt them, yes. My
Okay.
husband saw them while we
Okay.
were there. He definitely saw them, and we went to like little houses,
Yeah, they put little
elf
houses out. They
houses.
bring
Yes,
food there and
yes.
everything. I
And
know
I
what you
could
mean.
feel them. Like I could feel like one was not very happy that we were in this area.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
other one was like just totally laughing. You know, but my husband felt them, but I didn't really feel them.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, I didn't see them, but he saw them, but we
Yeah.
both
Okay.
felt them. And
Yeah. Okay.
but yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's based on something, right? Like all these
Well,
fairy tales are based on
yeah,
reality.
I'm totally agree. And I know in Iceland they're way more open to these, well, at least part of the population, as far as I understand, is still way more open to these, because they are having these little houses for them. They bring food for them. They
Yep.
a lot of people say they see them. So I totally believe in it. It's sad in a way that we lost the ability to see and communicate with all these other, how can I say it neutrally, entities that are
Yeah.
still here with us, and we just declare everybody crazy who can. So that's, uh,
Right. You're right. I think it's sad. I think it's sad too that we've lost the ability
yeah.
to understand or see or feel, even I am still feeling, right? I would love to see spirits, and I'd love to see elves and those sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if where could people find you? Where would you want to send them if they're now intrigued and they think like, "Oh, I want to find Seth. I need a reading, or I need his coaching, or I need to learn more about his smile or grace method." Where would you send them?
Sure. I am SethEliot.com is one place. And then you can finally find me on most social medias at Seth Eliot Santoro. So that's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah.
Do you have a preferred method how they contact you, or
No.
doesn't matter? Okay.
Anywhere there they can find me.
Anywhere they can find you, they
And no,
can
I
find
mean
you everywhere and anywhere. Okay, so listen, before we wrap
yes.
up, any last words of wisdom, or did I not ask something that you feel like this still needs to be in this conversation, or anything that comes to you?
Yeah, again, I'm feeling for this one, but um I do want everyone to know that it is possible to heal from anything and everything. Emotionally heal. Um
Mhm.
it might take time, it might take a lot of effort, but I don't believe in suffering for very long. I believe that everyone has the capacity to not only emotionally heal, but also I believe that everyone has the capacity to um, become more psychic if they want to, or more intuitive. I feel like
Mhm.
it's within everyone's reach, and I believe that we must go through, we must figure out how to grieve and from loss and death, in a different, more productive and effective way, and it is possible.
Yeah. Agreed. Definitely. The grief part, agreed. Thanks so much, Seth. I
Thank
would
you.
have questions for another 3 hours, most likely. I could talk with you all day.
I love it.
But we can't do that. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for
sharing
having
your
me.
wisdom, sharing your energy and all with us. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.